and welcome to Lesson 8 in our series 3D Modeling for Newbies. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the sculpting tool within the software and some of the other tools that tool option with a moderately sized brush. And you can see it's going to smooth out the crevice, the space between each of the grapes. This will help when you're actually cutting out the piece. You get smoother edges. There is an option within the tool to preserve transparencies. If you uncheck it, what will happen is you are able to then extend beyond your component and smooth out the edges of the grapes themselves. This is very useful to be able to create nice, clean 3D models and components. The caution with this is, now that you've chosen to smooth out the exterior edge, that also extends your 3D component. I can choose to save it and then continue sculpting. So, for example, I use the smudge tool. This is similar to using your thumb when you're pushing clay around. I can undo my work by clicking on the undo brush and simply going over it. It'll return it to its last known save property. The Add tool simply does that. It adds pixels. With the Preserve Transparency checked, you can't work outside of your component, but with it unchecked, you can actually create new components. The Reduce doesn't eliminate it, just makes it into a negative shape. But if I choose the Undo brush and hold my Shift key down, it actually acts like an eraser. And of course, the twiddle, you're able to turn it and view it from different angles. I can discard what I just did and it'll return it back to our saved version. So, work a little bit, save it. Work a little bit more. If you don't like it, you can always delete that. Here you can see the leftover parts of the component that we did while we were sculpting. So here's a little trick on how to get rid of that extra work. I can reduce my component ever so slightly below the Z level, just so that extra flat area of the component is now underneath our modeling plane. And I can choose the option to replace below. I choose transparent, I click apply, and that excess component is now deleted. Makes for very quick work in this situation. Of course, every time you do something or bake something or make adjustments, the name of the component keeps getting longer and longer. So do yourself some good, reduce the name down so it's a manageable length. Something you'll remember. I found a nice image from iStockPhoto.com that I purchased for our next example. And this is the grape leaf that we're going to work with. When I import it, it winds up on its own layer, the bitmap layer. So we'll hide everything else. I created a new layer just for this component. You may already know this process. Let's just go through it one more time. I select my bitmap. I use the trace bitmap option. I just want to draw around the leaf. I click on the one color that I want, the white, and create basically a boundary vector around my leaf. With my bitmap chosen, I can click on the create component from the bitmap, and the software will create a component from that bitmap. I then choose the vector I created around the leaf as well as the component itself, and I delete everything outside of that closed vector. Now I have just the leaf by itself generated from the bitmap. This is where your artistic talent comes in. You may want to adjust the shape height. It may be a little bit too rough or not rough enough. It's nice, but it's a little too flat. I want to add some Z to it. I want to add some shape underneath it. So let me show you an alternative to the two-rail sweep. I draw a vector around my leaf. And reduce the number of nodes it took to create that. I'm going to add two nodes across from one another. On the left will be my first starting node. I'm going to copy and paste this vector on top of itself. So now my second vector, the starting node, I would like to put on the opposite side. So two vectors, two different starting points directly opposite each other. As we said earlier, this is a two-rail sweep option. So I'm going to create my profile. I choose my two odd shapes. Those will be my rails. You can see they're running in the same direction, and you can see the two nodes, one at the 9 o'clock position and one at the 3 o'clock position. I choose my profile and hit apply. This will become eventually my underlying shape for my leaf. Choosing that new component, I go into the sculpting tool and I'm going to smooth out some of those ridges. A rather large diameter for my brush, as well as the strength turned all the way up. You may need to play around with this for a while. We now are going to use the leaf vector and eliminate everything outside of that for our underlying shape. We can adjust the shape height of that component. Now we have a leaf that has a little bit more undulation to it. I think that looks about right. Make a copy of my visible model, and now I can start to adjust that as a single component. Again, change the shape height, adjust the base height if I needed. In this case, I'm going to tilt it up ever so slightly. We've learned how to do this in a previous lesson. Click on the tilt, set your anchor, and drag your cursor across, and choose your tilt. These are all the things that we've learned previously. I create another little component for the stem of the leaf. Now here's a little different twist on how my next step would be. I could select both of these components and choose the Create Model option, or I can simply bake them together. I'm pretty secure in knowing that I'm not going to be changing these existing shapes. Clicking on that baked component, I'm going to adjust its size down slightly. Now I need to get rid of some of these excess vectors. I can click on the little symbol next to level 1. That will select all of the vectors on that level, and I can easily delete all of them at one time. Rotate the leaf. I'm going to need to make a second one. I'm going to mirror it. I could have created the second one several ways, simply by clicking on it and choosing the Control-C, copy, Control-V, paste, or using the mirror tool. I need to set both of these components to merge. Now I still need to fiddle around with them a little bit because they still are not laying correctly. So I could do a couple different things. I can take my first leaf and raise the base height so that it sits above my second leaf, or I can take my second leaf and I can fade it underneath my first leaf. So when you have problems like this, you have options. Raise it above or fade it underneath, or maybe both. I think the tilt and fade option adds a really nice touch to the finished product. So let's take a look at how the grape leaves work with our grapes themselves. I'm going to keep them under separate levels. May require that the levels have their own component properties of merge. So the leaves don't interact with each other, nor do they interact with the grapes. I'd like to add a little bit more depth and dimension to the veins of the leaf. So we select the component of the leaf. We're going to go into our sculpting tool again. I'm not sure exactly which tool to use, so let's try the Add tool. I'm going to adjust the shape of the brush as well as the strength. It's not doing exactly what I want. Let's try something else. Let's try the Smudge tool. I can see it's having some effect to the texture of the leaf. Let's try something else. Let's try the Smooth tool. I'm sort of not liking the end results of this. So I can simply say disregard. It's going to issue a warning saying there's some other options that could have been done. But now I'm going to choose my Add tool again. I'm going to increase the strength of it, reduce the size of my brush. And hit OK. So, one last thing to look at. So we have our components, and we'd like to add a little bit of color, just to see what it's going to look like. So within our component properties, we can choose to have each component a different color, or a different material. In this case, we're going to just use solid colors. There is the option to uncheck or check to have your component selected. If you uncheck that box, it shows the true color. This is a great option to be able to take this picture, this image, and send it to your customer to see if they like the end result. Or for yourself to see what colors may work